When our world was dying, the galaxy turned its back. Councils went silent, empires dismissed us, even our allies called it an internal matter. But in our darkest hour, a voice broke through the static, rough, accented, human. We got your message. We're coming. They didn't arrive with speeches or promises, they came with fire and fury, to fight beside us, not above us. And as humanity tore the enemy apart, we believed again, not just in survival, but in victory. Stay with us if you want to find out how the story ends, and don't forget to subscribe. They say when the sky falls, you don't run. You brace for impact. That's what we did on the dying world of Sarah. We didn't pray. We screamed. Our cities burned. Our skies choked on ash. We sent distress signals on every frequency, activated every protocol known to the galaxy. We weren't proud anymore. We begged. We pleaded. Someone, anyone, save us. The Galactic Council ignored us. The Virex Empire deemed us strategically irrelevant. The Carry called it an internal matter. The Azal simply replied, extinction is part of natural balance. We watched our children starve, our warriors fall, and our oceans turn black. We weren't always like this. We were creators, artists, thinkers. We believed in peace. But peace had made us soft. When the Skarn invaded, they didn't send diplomats or warnings. They sent fire. A species engineered for war, armored in hatred and blood. We tried everything, negotiation, tribute, even slaves. They didn't want deals. They wanted domination. They wanted Sarah gone. And we were losing. Fast. Then, one day, buried in the static of our final transmission, a voice broke through. Not mechanical. Not synthetic. Human. Rough. Accented. Real. Hey, we got your message. This is Captain Ava Morgan, Earth Defense Command. We're coming. We thought it was a trick. A lie. Humanity? The backwater species from Sol 3? The same race the Galactic Council laughed at for being too emotional, too primitive, too aggressive? They didn't even have a seat at the high courts. They were nobodies. But a week later, the sky above Sarah split open. A fleet descended, not with grace or style like the Carry, but with brutal force. Ships that looked like flying weapons, hard angles, black steel, rows of turrets instead of banners. No crests. No diplomatic hull codes. Just one insignia stamped in red and white on every surface, a planet encircled by stars. Earth had come. At first, we didn't know what to make of them. They weren't diplomats. They didn't wear robes. They wore scarred armor and grim expressions. Not a single word of negotiation. Not a single phrase about treaties or peace. They asked only one question. Where's the enemy? Captain Morgan herself landed in the ruins of our capital. Her boots crunched bones beneath the ash. She didn't flinch. Didn't cry. She looked at our elders, nodded once, and said, "We're not here to save you. We're here to fight beside you." That night, for the first time in years, we saw something we'd forgotten. Hope. It wasn't just their firepower. It was the way they fought. Like beasts with nothing left to lose. No hesitation. No retreat. Just fury. When a Skarn warlord tried to ambush their camp, the humans laughed as they tore him apart. One of our scouts reported a human soldier pulling a burning flag from the rubble and kissing it. When asked why, the soldier simply said, "Because we've been where you are. And no one came for us. That's why we're here." That was just the beginning. Humans didn't bring politics. They brought vengeance. They didn't ask for gold or payment. They asked for one thing. Revenge. And something in us knew we were going to give it to them. The first time we truly saw what humanity could do wasn't on the battlefield. It was in the ruins of our hospitals. We had stopped treating the wounded. There were too many. Supplies were gone. Hope was gone. Our medics used herbs and sticks. Painkillers were memories. We thought mercy was the only thing we could offer. The humans changed that. They arrived and moved like machines. Fast. Precise. Angry. Their medics were soldiers. Their hands didn't shake. They sprayed hissing foams on burns, stopped arterial bleeding in seconds, lifted screaming children onto stretchers while whispering words we couldn't understand, but the tone said everything. "You're going to make it." One man, bald with tattoos of wolves, picked up a boy with half a leg gone. No fear. No disgust. Just a firm grip and a calm voice. "You're a tough little bastard, you know that?" The boy didn't understand the words. But he stopped crying. Humanity didn't just heal us. They made us feel like we mattered again. That we weren't just a fading species waiting for extinction. That we were worth saving. 3 days. That's all it took them to fortify the southern ridge. We called them reckless, digging trenches, deploying turrets, laying sensors like ants building for war. We said they were wasting effort. The Skarn would overrun it in minutes. But when the enemy came over the hills, the truth hit like thunder. The humans hadn't fortified the ridge to defend it. They'd fortified it to bait the Skarn in. No speeches. No horns. Just breath. Just focus. And when the Skarn crossed into range, all hell broke loose. Turrets screamed. Rockets howled. The humans roared, not in fear, but in rage. I saw 5 of them hold a bridge against 30 Skarn. 5. They fought like demons, backs to each other, moving as one. One of them was shot clean through the stomach. He didn't stop. he shouted. "I ain't got time to bleed," and kept firing. Captain Morgan stood on a hill, dusted in ash, giving orders with the calm of a machine. When a Skarn transport tried to flank us, she didn't delegate. She led the counterattack personally, straight into the blast zone. That night, she entered our war council uninvited, rolled out a map, pointed at the enemy's spine and said, "This is how we break their back. You want to live? Follow my lead." Our generals hated her tone, but we were out of options. So we listened. They didn't wait for permission. They never did. The next morning, the humans began building not walls, but plans. Not to defend, to strike. It was madness, we thought. Suicide. The Skarn controlled the canyons, the high ground, the skies. But the humans smiled when we told them this. They wanted the odds. Captain Morgan called it a gut punch. A full-scale assault on the Skarn's primary supply fortress buried deep in the Razak canyons. It was a fortress no army had ever breached, guarded by plasma turrets, armored elites, and a minefield of living traps. The Galactic Council had declared it impenetrable years ago. The humans laughed. They said the same about Normandy, one muttered, loading his rifle. We didn't know what that meant, but it sounded like defiance. It sounded like victory. For 3 nights, they moved like phantoms across the canyon ridges, scaling cliffs with bare hands, slipping into enemy lines to plant explosives, silently slitting throats in the dark. No glory, no hesitation, just the work. They didn't fight. They hunted. And on the 4th night, the storm came. A shock barrage hit first, detonators that screamed through the canyon, scrambling Skarn sensors and collapsing patrol formations. Then the gunships descended. Black steel, razor-shaped, engines howling like angry gods. They dropped squads of humans into the center of the fortress. That's when we saw them fully unleashed. Not soldiers. Monsters. Beautiful, terrifying monsters of war. They didn't move like troops. They moved like chaos given purpose. Screaming battle cries, firing while sprinting, laughing while bleeding. One soldier ran straight at a Skarn brute nearly twice his size, dodged its cleaver, and jammed a grenade into its mouth before diving behind cover. The explosion painted the canyon walls red. We joined them, of course. We had no choice. Their rage infected us. Their courage became ours. And as blood soaked the sand, we felt something shift. This war was no longer ours alone. Captain Morgan led the charge into the command tower. The enemy warlord, Gorthak the Butcher, was said to reside there. His voice had haunted every Skarn broadcast since the first invasion. No one had ever seen him, only heard his gravel growl. Morgan didn't hesitate. Her squad breached the tower in a storm of smoke and steel. What followed was silence. Seconds passed, then minutes. Only static on the comms. Until her voice cut through, raspy, breathless, but triumphant. Target neutralized. Fortress is ours. We screamed until we couldn't anymore. That night, the skies above Sarah were still. No more Skarn patrols. No more bombers. Just stars. We took the fortress, once a monument to our failure, and turned it into our new command base. The humans limped among us, armor battered, faces smeared in blood and soot. They didn't hold parades. They built fires, played music from strange metal boxes, poured amber liquid from flasks they called whiskey. They passed the bottles to us. We hesitated, until a young girl named Violet took a sip, grimaced like she'd swallowed acid, and spat it out to the sound of erupting human laughter. For the first time since the invasion began, we laughed too. But Captain Morgan didn't join in. She stood at the edge of the fortress walls, arms crossed, watching the night. I approached her. "You did it." She didn't look at me. "This isn't over," she said. "It's just the first punch." I asked her if she really believed we could win. She turned to me, eyes like molten steel. "Win? We're not here to win. We're here to make them wish they never heard your name." In that moment, I believed her. And something changed in all of us. This wasn't survival anymore. This was vengeance. Word spread like wildfire. The fortress at Razak, the so-called impenetrable stronghold, had fallen. And it wasn't the Virex or the Carry who took it. It wasn't the Galactic Council or its sanctioned peacekeepers. It was the humans. The same species once mocked as primitive, impulsive, undisciplined. Now everyone was whispering their name. Even the Skarn. We saw it in their movements. Less confident. Less coordinated. Their patrols were jittery. Their assaults sloppy. They had learned fear. But fear doesn't end wars. It only delays the next battle. The humans knew that. While we dared to breathe again, they worked. While we celebrated, they built. The fortress was transformed. Their engineers, greasy, relentless, refitted enemy turrets, rewired power systems, welded armor plating onto every possible wall. Their scientists studied Skarn weapons like puzzles, laughing when they cracked something. They weren't just adapting. They were reinventing the battlefield. And it wasn't just tech. It was how they thought. Humans didn't believe in fair fights. They believed in winning. They taught us how to set traps from scrap, how to rig fuel cells as makeshift explosives, how to use shadows, terrain, and even sound. They broadcast battle chants, deep, guttural earth music, through hidden speakers at night. One track they called Metal made the very ground shake. We didn't know what it meant, but the Skarn flinched every time it played. Still, not everyone welcomed them. One night, in a mess hall carved from an old Skarn barracks, a fight nearly broke out. Counselor Havoc, one of our oldest living elders, stood and confronted Captain Morgan. His voice shook with rage. You do not belong here. This is not your war. You fight like beasts and call it glory. You know nothing of honor. The hall froze. Even the humans stopped chewing. Morgan rose slowly. No weapon. No raised voice. She walked straight up to him, looked him in the eyes, and said, Your honor got your cities burned. Your pride got your children killed. We're not here for medals. We're here so your grandchildren don't grow up in chains. Havoc stared at her for a long time, then walked away without a word. Later that night, I found her outside, staring at the stars with a half-empty bottle in her hand. I'm not here to be liked, she said. I'm here because someone's got to be the bastard who does what no one else will. I didn't argue. She was right. The next day, we launched another mission, an extraction. Juno, one of our youngest scouts, had been captured during the Razak operation. The Skarn held her in a prison camp deep in the Badlands. We expected weeks of planning. Political deliberation. The humans acted that same night. No meetings. Just execution. A team was assembled. The plan was direct, brutal, precise. I went with them. We breached the outer wall under cover of dust and night. Gunfire erupted. The Skarn barely knew what hit them. We found Juno in a cage, beaten, starved, tortured. Captain Morgan herself cut the bindings and knelt beside her. You're not alone, she said. Not anymore. But it wasn't the rescue that haunted me. It was the aftermath. The humans didn't just evacuate. They burned the outpost to the ground. Left one Skarn guard alive, wounded and tied to a post. Above his head, in 3 languages, was carved a message. We came for one. Imagine when we come for all. It was then I realized something terrifying and beautiful. The humans weren't just helping us survive. They were changing us. Not into conquerors. Not into pacifists. Into something new. Something relentless. And for the first time in our long, proud history, that was exactly what we needed to be. The deeper we pushed into Skarn territory, the more we saw what they'd done. Villages razed. Forests burned to skeletal ash. Fields turned to graveyards. And bodies. So many bodies. Not just soldiers. Civilians. Infants. Elders. Entire family lines erased and strung up as warnings. The Skarn didn't conquer. They cleansed. It changed us. Once, we took prisoners. Once, we offered surrender. Not anymore. The humans never asked us to abandon mercy. They didn't need to. Every atrocity we uncovered hardened us further. And we began to understand something unspoken, something in the eyes of the Earthborn that no briefing could explain. They had seen this before. They had lived it. One night, around a crackling fire at an abandoned outpost, I asked Captain Morgan a question I had feared to speak aloud. What happened to your people? She didn't answer immediately, just stared into the flames. Then, softly, we used to fight each other. For color. For flags. For gods. Millions died. We built bombs that erased cities. Called it progress. Then something worse came. Something that didn't care who we were, only that we weren't them. She paused. An alien fleet landed in South America. Took half the continent in weeks. We begged the galaxy for help. The council called it a localized incident. Her voice tightened. So we stopped begging. And we started hitting back. She leaned closer to the firelight. We lost billions. But in the end, we made them leave. Not because we were stronger, but because we refused to die. I didn't speak after that. I didn't need to. Her silence told the rest. Humans didn't fight for glory. They fought because they remembered what it felt like to scream into a void that never answered. And they refused to let anyone else feel that again. The next campaign was ambitious, a coordinated triple strike on 3 Skarn communications nexuses. They controlled the northern wastes, choke points for troop movements, supply drops, and tactical data. We moved at dusk. 3 teams. No backup. I was assigned to a unit led by a human named Reyes. He didn't speak much. Scar above his right eye. Voice like cracked iron. Every word was measured, every glance precise. The kind of man who made silence louder than commands. When we breached the first nexus, it was crawling with Skarn. Any other force would have fallen back, regrouped. Reyes kicked open the command door and opened fire before the Skarn could react. We followed. What happened inside wasn't war. It was butchery. We moved like blades in a hurricane. And something strange happened. Every Sarath soldier in that room moved faster. Fought harder. It was as if Reyes' fury bled into us. When it was over, Reyes approached the main console. He didn't gloat. Didn't cheer. He just set the charges and said. One less voice for them to scream orders through. All 3 nexuses were destroyed by dawn. The Skarn retaliated immediately. An orbital strike vaporized one of our forward camps. Dozens dead. Most were Sarath. But a few were human. One of them was just a girl. Barely 18. Name was Lexi. She used to draw flowers on her helmet. Sang off-key during patrol. Captain Morgan found the melted remains of that helmet in the crater. No one dared speak to her. She didn't cry. She just stood there in the ash and said, No more defense. We take the fight to their heart. Her second-in-command blinked. That's deep Scarn territory. They'll expect it. Good, she said. I want them to expect it. I want them to hear our engines before they see us. I want them to fear every echo in the dark. And I want every Sarath fighter with us when we burn their empire down. It was insane. But something in her voice silenced all objections. We weren't just defending anymore. We were invading. Under the banner of a species we once dismissed as primitive, we prepared to march into hell. And not one of us looked back. The march toward the Scarn capital was something Sarah had never seen before. We were not a people of long campaigns. Our battles had always been swift, defensive, forced upon us. But now we crossed into enemy land, not as survivors, not even as soldiers. As a storm. And at the head of that storm was Earth. Their gunships hovered low, rumbling like beasts on chains. Their tanks, massive metal monsters, tore through terrain that would have stopped us cold. Trees fell. Hills cracked. It was as if nature itself surrendered to their fury. They didn't walk. They stormed. Every bootstep sent a message. We are coming. But even with power on our side, the journey cut deep. Ambushes. Traps. Drone strikes that dropped from the sky like ghosts. The Scarn were wounded, yes, but desperate. Desperation made them cruel. We lost people every day. One night, after burying 7 more names we didn't have the breath to mourn properly, I found Reyes again, under the twisted canopy of a dead jungle, cleaning his rifle with steady hands. You ever think about quitting? I asked. He looked up, brow raised slightly. Quitting? I mean, walking away. Saying enough. His face didn't change. I did once, he said quietly. Years ago. Watched a village burn because I hesitated. Thought maybe peace was still possible. He paused, wiping carbon from the chamber. You only make that mistake once. And then, as if it cost him nothing, he went back to cleaning. Since then, I keep going. Because if I stop, they win. That was when I understood. Humans weren't driven by victory. They were driven by memory. Every scar, every loss, every betrayal etched into them like armor. They carried their past like a blade. And that's why they never broke. The next day, we reached the outer perimeter of the Scarn capital. A towering hive of metal and fire. Walls pulsing with energy. Spires guarded by gun nests. Drones circling like vultures. It looked like a city, but it felt like a wound. Our generals hesitated. Captain Morgan didn't. She gathered us behind a ridge, laid out the plan with a tone sharper than any blade. 2 teams. One loud, create chaos, draw them out. The other, us, would cut through the waste tunnels below, strike the command core. Someone joked, nervously, who volunteers to be the distraction? Morgan didn't smile. We're not asking for volunteers. She pointed at Reyes. You lead the flank. Make noise. Lots of it. He nodded once. No questions. She turned to me. You're with me. I said nothing. Just grabbed my gear. At dusk, the sky turned to fire. Reyes' team hit first. Explosions. Gunships. Screams. The Scarn flooded their walls, every drone and soldier drawn into the inferno. They thought that was the attack. They were wrong. We slipped beneath them, through old tunnels forgotten by time and arrogance. Morgan led from the front, I scanning every dark corner, rifle always ready. Bones lined the path, some Scarn, some unknown. No one spoke. Above us, the capital burned. But below, it was quiet. Too quiet. Until we heard him. The warlord. His voice echoed like thunder rolling through stone. You bring insects to challenge my empire? This is your rebellion. Then he stepped from the shadows. Massive. Armored. Alive with energy. Twice Morgan's size. A walking weapon. She didn't hesitate. Raised her rifle and answered. No. This is your punishment. Then she fired. The warlord didn't die easy. Morgan's first shot struck clean, shoulder joint. A kill shot for most. He barely flinched. Instead, he laughed. A low, grinding sound like metal scraping bone. You think your little toys can stop me? He growled, tearing the molten armor from his own wound like peeling away fabric. You bring fire, I am the storm. Then he charged. Morgan rolled, fired again. A glancing blow. The blast scorched the plating on his leg but barely slowed him. He swung a blade thick as a tree trunk, and it carved a stone pillar in half like wet paper. We scattered. The chamber turned into chaos. No tactics. Just survival. He moved like a siege engine. Every step a quake. Every strike a demolition. We fired everything, bullets, charges, knives, but he kept coming. Morgan fought like a woman who had nothing left to lose. She dodged with inches to spare. Every time she was knocked back, she got up again. Around her, we tried to buy seconds. To flank. To distract. But the warlord was born for this, built for this. You bring scavengers and cowards to challenge me? He spat, backhanding a Sarath fighter against the wall with a sickening crack. You beg for help from apes who think pain is power. You are nothing. Morgan didn't answer. She signaled with 2 fingers, fall back, spread out. He followed, grinning. Then stepped down. Click. The pressure mine we planted earlier took off half his leg in a single roar. He screamed, not in pain, but in rage. Smoke poured from his ruined armor. He dropped to one knee, sparks vomiting from his cracked chestplate. Morgan didn't run. She walked toward him slowly. the barrel of her rifle glowing red-hot. Her face calm. No words. Just 3 shots. Chest. Neck. Then a pause. Right between the eyes. The warlord collapsed like a mountain finally giving in to gravity. Silence followed. Real silence. Our breath rattled. Our hands shook. But it was over. We'd done it. And yet, Captain Morgan didn't celebrate. She tapped her calm. Reyes. Report. Nothing. Again, louder. Reyes. Do you copy? Static. Then a fractured voice came through, ragged and strained. Flank compromised. They pulled back. Circled us. Not many left. But we held the gate. You're clear. Silence. Morgan's jaw clenched, but she didn't break. She looked at us, bloodied, exhausted, still standing, and gave the final order. Arm the core. Now. The Sarath engineer in our squad hesitated. You mean the main core? That will destroy the entire city. Morgan nodded. That's the point. But everything? Factories. Breeding pits. Archives. Command centers. We don't defeat them. We erase them. There was no further protest. Explosives were placed along the central power conduit. Timers armed. 5 minutes. We moved fast, hauling wounded, stumbling through smoke and blood. As we emerged into the upper city, the capital was burning. Fires stretched across every district. Drones spiraled down like wounded birds. The sky was thick with ash. And yet the humans fought on. Still screaming. Still firing. Still alive. At the evac zone, a human dropship hovered low, its bay doors open, engine straining. Morgan paused at the ramp. She looked back once. At the towers we once feared. At the walls now cracked and bleeding. Then she pulled the trigger on the detonator. The world turned white. The explosion wasn't just fire, it was light. It rose into the sky like a new sun, devouring the capital in one blinding wave. Shockwaves rattled the dropship as we lifted off. Flames chased our tail. And below us, the Skarn were gone. It wasn't the end of the war, but it was the end of their empire. For the first time since the day they landed, they were the ones running. The skies of Sarah changed after that. Not just from the ash, though it still clung to the air like a ghost, drifting from the scorched forests and shattered cities. No, it was something else. Something deeper. The sky didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt charged. There was no parade. No anthem. No declaration of victory. There was only movement. The Skarn were broken. Their capital obliterated. Their leadership gone. Their supply lines severed. The shockwave of that single detonation fractured their empire like glass. Fleets deserted. Warlords turned on each other. Some vanished into deep space. Others tried to beg for peace. We didn't negotiate. We gave them one chance. Silence. No treaties. No councils. Just a message, repeated in every language. Never again. And the galaxy, watching from the sidelines for far too long, finally responded. Broadcasts from captured Skarn satellites went viral across every known system. Footage of their atrocities. There were camps. The bodies. The burned cities. Tortured civilians. And alongside it, the resistance. The fire. The fight. The humans titled the transmission. You ignored the cry. Now hear the war cry. Even the Carry, pacifists who had once called our pleas unstrategic, issued a formal statement of regret. The Virex offered weapons. Captain Morgan refused. We don't need charity from cowards. Sarah rose. The clans who had fled into underground tunnels emerged, armor reborn. The exiles returned from outer colonies. Even Skarn slaves, genetically altered for servitude, rose up and joined us. Because the humans were still there. Teaching, training, pushing us to be more than just survivors. I remember a moment, small, quiet, that I'll never forget. After we liberated the deep mining camps in the Never Basin, a little Sarath girl, skin pale from years underground, walked up to a human soldier. She couldn't have been older than 5. She touched the man's armor, scorched, dented, still dripping black soot, and whispered, "You came." The soldier, massive, scarred, missing half an ear, knelt beside her. He didn't say much, just smiled. "Yeah," he said, "we did. But Captain Morgan?" She never let up. Even as victory loomed, she stayed sharp, unsmiling, watchful. When word came of a Skarn warlord defecting, she didn't celebrate. When we reclaimed the Valley of Temples, a sacred place we had thought lost, she didn't speak. She just looked at the ruins, then turned to us all and said, "We don't stop until the last chain is broken." Not just for Sarah. For every world that screamed and got silence in return. So we kept moving. The Skarn tried to regroup. We shattered them. Some begged for mercy. We gave it, but on our terms. No deals. No compromises. Just one sentence. You took too much. When the last battlefield fell silent, we stood among the ruins of our old capital. The city we once mourned had become a skeleton of stone and shattered glass. But we didn't see loss anymore. We saw foundation. Rebuilding began, not with fanfare or orders, but with hands and shovels. Stone by stone, seed by seed. But something had already been rebuilt inside us. We were no longer the people who begged. We were the people who answered. The Scarn Empire crumbled completely within weeks. What remained of their fleets scattered. The warlords who hadn't been hunted down turned themselves in, more afraid of us than of their own fractured command. We didn't hold trials. We didn't need to. Our justice had already been written in fire. As for the humans, they didn't stay. They packed their gear, cleaned their weapons. Silently, efficiently, they prepared to leave as quickly as they had come. We tried to honor them, to offer titles, to name monuments after their fallen. They refused. Captain Morgan met with the new Sarath Council, formed not from diplomats, but from survivors, builders, fighters, people who bled for every inch we'd reclaimed. She stood before us, tired, scarred, unyielding. "We'll come if you call again," she said. "But I don't think you'll need us next time." I found her alone in the hangar, just before her ship launched. I asked her one last question. "Out of all the worlds, why ours?" She looked at me, eyes burning with the weight of things she hadn't said. "Because once, we screamed into the void too. And no one came. So we made a promise. If we ever heard that scream again, we'd be the ones to answer it." And then she left. Their fleet vanished into the stars, leaving behind no statues, no cities, no claims of glory. Only footprints in ash, scorched armor, and stories that would echo across generations. We begged the galaxy for help. Only humanity heard our cry. And they didn't come to save us. They came to teach us how to win.